Victory Studios in downtown Little Rock, this is Capitol View.
And good Sunday morning to you. Welcome into Capitol View. I'm Jay Burr. It is the largest project to come to Arkansas. U.S. Steel is expanding in Northeast Arkansas to the tune of $3 billion. I said it right, $1 billion. Here to tell us how it all came together, what the impact will hopefully be, is Secretary of Commerce Mike Preston. He's a fan favorite. We certainly do always enjoy the time there. Secretary Preston, how are you doing?
Jay, I'm good. Thanks for having me on this morning.
Absolutely. So let's jump right to it here. U.S. Steel finally made the call. I know during that special session, lawmakers passed some tax incentives, things like that. When it all came down to it, what did those folks tell you guys that, hey, Arkansas is the one, and why?
Well, it was a very strong competition. When we were in the legislative session, it was down to about 3 states at that point, us, Alabama, and Mississippi. But when they started this and looking at this site and where they're going to put this mill, they actually looked at a total of 14 states and over 40 sites in those 14 states. So it was strong competition. We knew we have a great site there in Mississippi County adjacent to the existing Big River Steel, which is now part of U.S. Steel facility. We knew with all the intangibles that helped us win that project, back some years ago, and all the strength that we have already in the steel industry in Mississippi County, that we were going to be a real player in this, and we had a good chance of winning it. Now, when we got into the legislative session, we knew that we needed a much more aggressive package in terms of our incentives, and that's why we brought the proposal to the legislature, what we thought would get the deal done and win it. And we were fortunate that the legislature came together and passed that so quickly, and I appreciate their support. And then since that time, we've spent negotiating with the company, and ultimately they made the decision to come to Arkansas, and we couldn't be more pleased about that.
Now, I know it was asked when you guys were presenting this past week, $50 million for a $3 billion investment, kind of a drop in the bucket. Do you think, or do we kind of really know, had the legislature not passed some of these, tax incentives and kind of moving some money around, did we still have a pretty good chance to lure those guys in, or was this really, the thing that put Arkansas over the hump?
No, that helped us over the hump. Had we not had those incentives come to the table, we wouldn't have won this project. It's as simple as that. It was a strong competition. As I said, 14 states were looked at. Air permits were actually filed in 5 different states that, I think could have been, that tells me the company could have reasonably done it in any of those 5 states. And then it ultimately came down to the 3, and we knew that there was strong competition with the existing presence that U.S. Steel had in other states. So we had to be very aggressive and lean forward on our incentive package. And I think we had a good package, a fair package, and really, again, appreciate the legislature's support, giving us those tools to go in and have that flexibility to present Arkansas's best and final offer to the company. And this time it worked, and we won the project.
I know a lot of people, they think steel, they think Pittsburgh, obviously the Steelers kind of goes hand in hand. But when this thing's all said and done, Mississippi County is going to be the highest steel producing county in the country. So, hey, bring that team down this way maybe.
That's right. We'll have to work on building a stadium for them or something. We got plenty of steel to do it with. But yeah, it's just such an honor for our state to have grown so much in the steel industry and to have stuck our flag in the ground, especially there in Mississippi County and the Delta and right on the river. That once this is up and running at full capacity, it'll be the top steel producing county in the entire country. And we talk about the importance of national security, and we've seen the supply chain issues and trying to bring things in from other countries throughout this pandemic. The more steel that we can produce right here in the U.S. and specifically in Arkansas that can go into all those things from, our automobile production to our infrastructure that's being built throughout the country, we can do it with U.S. made steel right here in Arkansas. We're just that much better for it.
And also, too, I know one of the caveats with this project, very environmentally friendly. Kind of what is the process, too? Because it's my understanding that they're going to be also recycling steel, hence part of the tax credits and some of that. So without getting too much into the weeds, kind of what is it that they'll be sort of doing with steel and even, reducing that carbon footprint?
That's right. It is. It's Big River Steel, when it came online, was the first LEED certified steel mill in the world. This one will be that much more technologically advanced and that much more, looking to reduce their carbon footprint. I think their goal was 2050 to have a net zero carbon footprint, which is incredible for a steel mill. And you think about all the utilities and everything that goes into that. And Entergy has been a great partner with Big River Steel, and now U.S. Steel was a big part of helping us get this deal done. So very pleased by that. But yeah, you're right. It's a recycling process that they do. So they're taking scrap material from really all over the country and all over the world, and they're bringing it in by barge. They melt down that scrap material, and that's what they use to make this new high-end steel that's going into all kinds of products, from electric vehicles to the batteries that go into our cars, into electric vehicles. So a lot of customer base out there for them. The supply chain is very strong in Arkansas and in the surrounding areas. So just pleased by what has come to fruition on this. And the wave is with automobile manufacturers, especially, that they're looking for that renewable footprint to be a part of it. So this steel mill is going to have a leg up on just about anybody in the world when it's up and running at full capacity.
And I guess finally here, what does this really do for that region? Obviously, as you mentioned, third big steel mill over there. The jobs are going to be pretty key here, but also those salaries for this one, as you guys announced, are pretty significant. And I know trying to build that area back up, but what does a project like this really do to really use that as a springboard in Mississippi County?
It's a generational project for that community. And what I mean by that is that there's going to be generations of people who go in and work in this mill, and what an impact that it's going to have. So, we talk about the numbers, the 900 jobs and the average wage of excess $100,000 per year, and the $3 billion investment. And that's $95 million in annual payroll going into that community and coming into our state. That makes a huge impact. And when we do our modeling on that, we translate that into an additional about 2.83 jobs, ancillary jobs for every one direct job at the mill. So that's another, 2,500 jobs. And that's not even counting all the construction jobs that will take place over the next 2 years as they start to construct this facility, and all the money that those individuals are coming in and spending in the community and the region and throughout our state. So the economic impact is huge. And as I said, it's generational.
He doesn't even close his eyes when he sneezes. Mike Preston, always on the prowl for the next big project. $3 billion might be kind of hard to top that one, but I wouldn't put it past you there, boss.
I appreciate it. We're always looking for the next great opportunity, so we're off and running already this week.
There you go. Well, boss, we appreciate the time as always. We'll do it again.
All right. Thanks.
All right. And when we come back, cybersecurity always at the top of businesses' priorities, and the Forge Institute will help us say what they're doing to possibly help those in need of that kind of thing. Here in Arkansas, you're watching Capitol View on Sunday morning.
You're watching Capitol View, Sunday morning talk focused on the political scene in Arkansas.
And welcome back into Capitol View. If you've got a big business, you've got a small business, cybersecurity likely something that keeps you up at night. Hopefully not. But the Forge Institute now has a program that looks to tackle the issue here in Arkansas. And joining us is Forge Institute CEO Lee Watson, and also from Axiom, Beth Ann Bigham. Did I say that right?
You're spot on.
There we go. Spot on here. Guys, we appreciate the time here. I guess, Lee, we'll kind of start with you here. What's sort of the program here? Ask a CISO. I would kind of ask, what is a CISO here?
Yeah, so thanks, Jay. So a CISO, CISO, is a Chief Information Security Officer. And the Ask a CISO program is a really great new opportunity for Arkansas-based startup tech companies and small business leaders to ask questions and hear from some of the state's best thought leaders in this space, to really think about risk management, how do they protect their intellectual property, how do they protect their customer data, and do it in a practical way that makes sense as their organizations are growing.
And Beth Ann, obviously you are one of these big thinkers here, and obviously handling a lot of different kinds of data. I know there at Axiom, you guys got numbers on numbers. Shout out Tim and Rebecca Burr. because they are axiomers as well. But I guess in essence, what are some of those core things that people are really concerned about? Because when I think cybersecurity, I'm thinking, do I get hacked? And that's kind of the basis of what I've got. But I would imagine there's a few more layers to it.
Yeah, the fundamental concerns of protecting data and information are core for a person as well as a corporation. The focus is ensuring the confidentiality, the integrity, and the availability of that data. The difference is the number of tools and the processes that you use, whether you're small, mid, or large-sized company. I really appreciate the work that we're doing to support communities and companies in Arkansas, because this Ask the CISO program is designed to provide insight into those different dynamics, same outcome, but potentially different tools and processes.
And I guess what are some of those things that folks need to kind of, look out for? I mean, I would assume if I'm just a small business, I don't really pay it a whole lot of mind, honestly. But what are some of those things that folks have actually, kind of inquired about?
Yeah, it's amazing. The basics are important across all of them. The ability to have strong passwords, ensuring that you check who has access to your information, where is it stored, is it protected correctly, if it's on your desktop or on more extensive network type structure, is that protected? Just like you protect your house and you have a lock on the front door and you have layers of defense, maybe at your home, it's the same concept for the workplace.
And Lee, I know we've talked in the past about Arkansas kind of being on the lower end when it does come to overall cybersecurity. And obviously, too, now with broadband booming across the state, especially there in the eastern part, more rural parts of the state, I mean, how much more vulnerable does that make the state when it does come to cybersecurity, if at all?
Yeah, so I think that surface area for risk is definitely increasing. But think about this too. So many of us are vendors to another company, and our technology is talking to their technology, and that's enabling commerce and transactions and customer experiences. So it's not just my risk, but my risk is your risk, and your risk is their risk. And there are second and third order effects here with this sort of vendor ecosystem. And this is something that we really need to work on as a state to improve.
And obviously, folks will think of, the Colonial Pipeline. First thing that kind of comes to mind here, and that's kind of, next level type of stuff here. But have we seen, and either one of you might be able to answer this, it seems like we've seen a whole lot more of these types of issues here just within the past maybe couple of years when it comes to data breaches and folks getting hacked.
Yeah, the ability to remain resilient while we see an increase and changes in the threat landscape, the threat scenarios, the way actors are using different tools and techniques. That means we all have to be resilient for sure, to Lee's point. And most recently, as you know, in the news today and this week, we have a number of executives heading to the White House to talk about exactly this, supply chain compromises that extend past the previous reach, as we saw. So resilience is key, and that's the goal of getting this information out so that we all protect each other.
And you kind of mentioned some of those new techniques and things. I mean, what are some of these folks doing to kind of bypass certain things? Because, when I start hearing about, encryptions and this and that and the other, I start thinking of the Matrix, but obviously it's not quite as cut and dry as that. So what are we seeing some of these bad actors do to kind of get around things kind of more commonly?
Yeah, I think if you look at the approach the actors are using to first compromise an environment, you'd be surprised, but still phishing is the number one method to get into an organization. Once in the organization, it's ransomware, extortionware, the ability to capture a component of an environment, contain that environment, and then demand some kind of monetary funds to release that, the containment. And so that's still a very common approach that we see in a lot of the breaches and a lot of the cyber incidents. And then obviously there are some that are exponentially more significant or more complex. And those are a little bit more unique and more rare.
Well, basically, make sure you change your passwords. Give me a capital letter. Give me some, numbers and some characters in there as well.
For sure. I mean, the basics are still important. It's almost like wash your hands, right? Keep it clean. If it's software development, test your code. Make sure you watch for vulnerabilities. Patch your systems. Some of these basics will keep you virus-free.
Oh boy, real G's move in silence like lasagna, and we've got a couple of them right here. Lee Watson with the Forged Institute, Beth Ann Bigham with Axiom Companies. Guys, we certainly do appreciate a little bit of the insight, and I know my brain hurts right now just from all the thought of this, but we certainly do help appreciate you coming in to kind of break it down for us.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Lee.
We appreciate it. Thanks,
absolutely. Well, when we come back, it's wild up on the hill. Plus, we've got a little more of this coronavirus going on around here. You're watching Capitol View on Sunday morning.
You're watching Capitol View, Sunday morning talk focused on the political scene in Arkansas.
Welcome back into Capitol View. The Supreme Court says the Biden administration cannot mandate vaccines for workers at larger companies. Last week, decision caps a month-long legal fight and leaves the White House falling short of its goal to vaccinate millions more Americans. Our Washington correspondent Trevor Shirley with more.
Last year, the administration said vaccines or weekly testing would be mandatory for any company with more than 100 employees. Several states and businesses sued over that mandate.
I am a grocery guy. I'm not the vaccine police.
The Supreme Court, in a 6-3 vote, decided that kind of mandate, though, exceeded the government's authority.
This ruling injures public health. And causes more people to die.
The court's conservative majority decided that COVID-19 is not specifically a workplace hazard, and therefore OSHA can't enforce a vaccine mandate like the White House wanted it to.
The Supreme Court's decision on the OSHA mandate essentially means that in this pandemic, it is up to individual employers to determine whether their workplaces will be safe for employees.
However, the court upheld a mandate for any healthcare worker at a facility that accepts Medicare or Medicaid. That decision will impact more than 10 million healthcare workers, but allows for religious or medical exemptions. Had the employer mandate been upheld, more than 80 million workers would have been affected.
It's a big blow to the Biden administration.
The White House says despite the ruling, employers should still try to get their workers vaccinated.
We need to do everything we can to encourage people to go back to work, but we also need to make sure they feel safe going back to work.
And as Arkansas continues to see a record-breaking number of new COVID cases, state senator is sharing his own experience with the virus. Democrat Clark Tucker announced on Twitter he's been pretty sick this past week despite being vaccinated and boosted. He's urging folks across the state to get vaccinated as Omicron continues to spread. Tucker tweeted, "It's everywhere out there. Please do what you can to take care of yourselves and each other." But I did talk with him recently. He says he is on the mend. Well, COVID tests are in high demand, and a testing kit production site in Florida working around the clock to meet that demand. The company that owns this facility also operates 2 other sites and produces about 1 million COVID-19 at-home test kits per day. The demand for these kits are astronomical right now, as many people across the country are struggling to find testing options. The FDA has only authorized 15 companies to produce these kits. With the rise of COVID cases comes a lack of staffing, and one of the hardest hit industries is the food industry. Restaurants across the Little Rock metro region have had to close down or limit orders to takeout only as the virus surges. Across the state, Keith and Company in Jacksonville had to close down for the rest of last week after deciding it was too difficult and unsafe to remain open with their current numbers. Owner Darren Keith says he knew there was the change of another surge, and by now the team, well, they know what to do.
We went through COVID the first time with our first location, so we kind of learned it.
Keith also encourages customers to keep in touch with your favorite eateries and continue to support them any way you can during their temporary closures. Democrats' push to pass federal voting rights legislation hit a major roadblock last week. Despite the best efforts from President Biden, he was unable to convince moderate Democrats in the Senate to go along with Senate rule changes to get the effort passed. Our DC's Raquel Martin has more.
The honest to God answer is, I don't know we're going to get this done.
It may be back to the drawing board for Democrats. Despite the president delivering his strongest calls for voting rights legislation this week, Thursday, moderate Democrats stood firm and vowed not to support changing Senate rules to force the bills through without Republicans.
While I continue to support these bills, I will not support separate actions that worsen the underlying disease of division.
Following a meeting with Senate Democrats, President Joe Biden vowed not to give up.
As long as I'm in the White House, as long as I'm engaged at all, I'm going to be fighting.
He says the bills are necessary to combat a wave of new voting laws in Republican-led states.
Continue to change the law, not as to who can vote, but who gets to count the vote.
But Republicans deny states are trying to suppress the vote.
Nobody in this country is buying the fake hysteria.
South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham says the president is looking for a political win.
The whole Biden presidency is in free fall.
He says the legislation is a power grab and says moderates are right to push back against any rule change.
She deserves a lot of credit, long as in her mansion.
Later Thursday, President Biden made yet another attempt to soften their stance. According to the White House, the three met for a, quote, candid and respectful exchange on voting rights.
And we're back to wrap it up after this. You're watching Capitol View on Sunday morning.
You're watching Capitol View, Sunday morning talk focused on the political scene in Arkansas.
No more papers, no more show. Thanks for joining us this week. I want to thank all of my guests, Secretary Mike Preston, for coming on to help us break down a big-time project. Also, Lee Watson from the Ford Institute and Beth Ann Bigham from Axiom, helping us try to wrap our heads around cybersecurity here in the state. We'll have an all-new Capitol View next week. Enjoy the rest of your hopefully not quite so snowy weekend.